our snatch grip barbell deadlift is a great strength move for our posterior chain. So for those hamstrings, glutes, low back, mid back, upper back, and traps. The snatch grip version of this is going to make it a little bit difficult than a normal barbell deadlift, a little more difficult, and it'll focus a little bit more on our upper and mid back for holding that barbell. So for a snatch grip deadlift here, you're going to have a barbell. If you do not have access to a barbell, perfectly fine. You can always substitute a normal dumbbell deadlift. It's going to be very similar, you just won't be working quite as much of the upper back on this, but it is a doable alternative if you do not have access to a barbell for this move. So, if you're one of those people that don't have a barbell, go ahead and just search up that dumbbell deadlift instructional video, and that'll show you a little bit more details on that specific movement. However, from this one, for that snatch grip, we're going to grab a barbell, we're going to come up to it to a normal dumbbell or a normal deadlift stance with that lower body, so feet about hip distance apart. Our snatch grip, if you've watched any of our other videos that involve a snatch grip, means that we're going to have that bar nice and wide outside of shoulder grip. It's called a snatch grip because there's an Olympic lift called a snatch, in where the setup for it with our hands is outside of shoulder width. So we're going to hinge on over, grab that bar nice and wide for this movement. Everything else, like we would for a normal deadlift, is going to be the same. So keeping that bar in nice and close to the shins, pushing the hips up, keeping that back nice and straight, squeezing those shoulder blades together, keeping that bar in close to us as we stand up, push the hips through, and then push the hips back as that bar slides down to the front of those thighs and those shins back to the floor. Remember, key things on this exercise, just like on a normal deadlift, that bar should stay in nice and close to the body. Any sort of gap with that bar out away from the legs is going to put more strain on that low back. So it should stay nice and close to the shins, nice and close to the thighs, both on that up and on the down. Another key thing to remember, those legs are bending just a little bit in order to keep that back nice and straight, but those hips want to remain up. We're not dropping down like this with that chest up like we would on a squat. We are hinging over, keeping that upper body fairly parallel to the floor. So use a mirror if you need to, and focus on keeping that back straight, but keeping those hips up. A good way to check this is when you get to the bottom of that deadlift, push those hips up. If you have any more room in those hips while keeping that back straight, you know you can go up a little bit higher. We're not pushing all the way up to where our back rounds. Remember, we're only pushing up as far as our hips can go while keeping that back straight. Other big thing to remember on this, just like a normal barbell deadlift, let that back control when you stop on here. So a lot of times your legs may have a little bit more left in them, even though the back doesn't, especially if you're not proficient already on these deadlifts and have built up your back. So what that's going to look like is those legs would extend, but that back's going to be rounded trying to come on up. If you reach that point, stop. No point in pushing it past that. It's going to put unnecessary strain on the low back. Instead, stop, and each time slowly try to build up until that back matches the strength in that lower body. So make sure we're not rounding over. Make sure we're keeping those shoulder blades back and that back nice and straight throughout that entire movement. You want a much lighter weight on this exercise with that snatch grip than you would for a normal deadlift because it's a lot harder to grip the bar. It's a lot more work on that upper back. So start off at a little lighter weight, and then you can start to build up to a more challenging one once you get used to this difference in that grip positioning.